Hello, 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 hello. Hello, yes, we are on live right now. We are on live right now. OK， 哇，这几天这个贸易战如火如荼。我们从这本书里可以看到这个贸易战的本质究竟是什么？繁荣消退，繁荣消退的经济 circle。OK， 我们继续 dig into this book. Jackson overrides Congress. Override 控制，否决优先于手动控制消除。That was brilliant strategy on Biden's part, but it didn't work. Oh, it didn't work. Why? Jackson decided to place his entire political career on the line for this one issue, and with perhaps the most passionate message ever delivered to Congress by any president before or since he voted the mayor. The president's biographer, Robert Rimini, says the veto message hit the nation like a tornado. Tornado. 龙卷风. For it not only tornado cited constitutional arguments against recharter. Supposedly, the only reason for resorting to a veto 否决权 veto 否决权 but political, social, economic, and nationalistic reasons as well. Jackson devoted most of his veto message to three general topics. One, the justice that is inherent in granting a government-sponsored monopoly to the bank. Second, two, the unconstitutionality of the bank, even if it were not unjust. And three, the danger to the country in having the bank heavily dominated by foreign investors. Regarding the injustice of a government-sponsored monopoly, he pointed out that the stock of the bank was owned only by the richest citizens of the country, and that since the sale of stock was limited to a chosen few with political influence, the common man not only is unfairly excluded from the opportunity to participate, but is forced to pay for his banking services far more than they are worth. Unearned profits are bad enough when they are taken from one class of citizens and given to another, but it is even worse when the people receiving those benefits are not even citizens at all, but are in fact foreigners, Jackson said. It is now not our own citizens only who are to receive the bounty of our government. More than 8 million of the stock of this bank are held by foreigners. By this act, the American Republic proposes virtually to make them a present of some millions of dollars. It appears that more than a fourth part of the stock is held by foreigners, and the residue is held by a few hundred of our own citizens. Chile was the richest class. For their benefit, thus this act excludes the whole American people from competition in the purchase of this monopoly and dispose of it for many millions less than it is worth. Regarding the issue of constitutionality, he said that he was not bound by the previous decision of the Supreme Court because the President and the Congress had just as much right to decide for themselves whether or not a particular law is constitutional. This view, incidentally, was not novel at that time. Novel. Naval. Naval. Oh, naval. No, novel. But only the related isn't the case that people have begun to think of the Supreme Count as being specifically, specific, specific, specifically authorized to pass on this question. In fact, as Jackson correctly pointed out in his veto message, the founding fathers created a government with power divided between the executive, legislative, and judicial branch, and that the purpose of this division was not merely to divvy up divvy up the chores, but to balance one branch against the other. The goal was not to make government efficient, but to deliberately make it inefficient. Each president and each legislator is morally bound, even by oath, to uphold the Constitution. If each of them does not have the power to decide in conscience what is constitutional, then taking an oath to uphold it has little meaning. Oath, 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 oath. A bank controlled by foreign investors. Regarding the danger to our national security, Jackson returned to the fact that a major portion of the bank's stockholders were foreigners. Even though foreign investors technically were not allowed to vote their shares, their financial power was so great that the American investors were clearly beholden to them and would likely follow their instructions, Jackson concluded. Is there no danger to our liberty and independence in a bank that, in its nature, has so little to benefit to our country? Is there not cause to tremble for the purity of our elections in peace and for the independence of our country in war? Of the cause which would be pursued by a bank almost wholly owned by the subjects of a foreign power and managed by those whose interests its not affections would run in the same direction, there can be no doubt. Controlling our currency, receive our public monies, and holding thousands of our citizens in dependence, it would be more formidable and dangerous than naval and military power of the enemy. Jackson saved the great passion of his arguments for the end, speaking now to not to Congress but to the voters at large. He said, it is to be regretted that the rich and powerful too often bend the axe of government to their selfish purposes. Distinctions in society will always exist under every just government. Equality of talents, of education, and of wealth cannot be produced by human institutions in the full enjoyment of the gifts of heaven and the fruits of superior industry, economy, and virtue. Every man is equally entitled to protection by law, but the laws undertake to add to these neutral and just advantages artificial distinctions, to grant titles, gratuities, and exclusive privileges, to make the rich richer and the potent more powerful, the human members of society, the farmers, mechanic, mechanics, and the laborers who have neither the time nor the means of security like favors to themselves, have the right to complain of the injustice of their government. There are no necessary evils in government. Its evil exists only in its abuses. If it would confine itself to equal protection and as heaven does its rains, shower its favor alike on the high and the low, the rich and the poor, it would be an unqualified blessing. In the act before me, there seems to be a wide and unnecessary departure from these just principles. The veto did not defeat the bank. It was merely a declaration of war. The major battle were yet to come, but its control over Congress. 这个演讲充满了情绪化。对富人和权势者利用政府谋取私利的遗憾和担忧，最后认为，在一个公正政府下，社会差异是自然存在的。天赋教育财富的平等无法通过人为制度实现，每个人都应平等地享有法律的保护，以充分利用天赋和辛勤劳动、节俭和美德的成果。然而，当法律人为地增加这些自然和公正的优势，授予头衔、恩惠和特权， 使富者更富，权者更强时，那些没有时间和资源争取同样优待的底层员工、农民、技工和劳工有权抱怨政府的不公。作者认为，政府本身不存在必然的邪恶，邪恶只存在于政府的滥用。如果政府能够专注于平等保护，像上天建议一样平等对待每个人，无论地位高低、贫富贵贱，那么它将是一种纯粹的福祉。作者认为，眼前的这项法案似乎严重且不必要地偏离了这样。It's to be regretted that the rich and powerful too often bend the axe of government to their selfish purpose，为了自己的私人目的扭曲政府的行动 ，bend 扭曲。Distinctions in society will always exist under every just government。自然的不平等。Quality of talent, of education, or of wealth cannot be produced by human institutions，无法产生平等，无法由人类制度产生。In the full enjoyment of the gifts of heaven and the fruits of superior industry, economy, and virtue, every man is equally entitled to protection by law。在充分享受上天的恩赐、卓越的果实和勤奋 industry economy 节俭 and virtue 美德，在充分享受上天的果实时，每个人都有权受到法律的保护。But when the laws undertake to add to this natural and just artificial distincts, the grand title, gratuities, and exclusive privilege to make the rich richer and the potent more powerful. The human members of society, the farmer, merchant, mechanics, and laborers, who have neither the time nor the means of securing, like favors to themselves, a right to complain of the injustice of the government. There are no necessary evil in government. Evil is necessary evils in government. Its evils exist only in its abuse. If it confines itself to equal protection, and heaven does its range, showers its favor alike on the high and low, the rich, the poor, look beyond qualified blessing, and unqualified. In the act before me, there seems to be a wide and unnecessary departure from these just principles. For in the act before me, 作者认为政府的邪恶在于其滥用，而一个公正的政府应该向上。他最后指出，眼前的这样思维，这段文词可能是由于政治家表达了对社会公正。Did not defeat the bank. That was merely a declaration of war. The major battles were yet to come. Battles control over the Congress as commanding general of the pro-bank forces. Biden had one powerful advantage over his adversary. 对，是 adversary. For all practical purposes, Congress was in his pocket, or more accurately, the product of his generosity was in the pockets of congressmen. Following the Roosevelt formula, Biden had been carefully to reward compliant politicians with success in the business world. Few of them were willing to bite the hand that fed them. Even the great Senator Daniel Webster found himself kneeling at Biden's throne. Gabriel says Biden was not. 美国银行总裁尼古拉斯·彼得尔作为银行势力的统帅，相对于其对手，法政行业又有一个强大的优势，他对实际控制。作者认为，这种并非基于合法的权利，而是源于彼得尔慷慨地利用银行的资源来回报那些顺从他的政治家，使他们的商业事业获得成功。许多国会议员因此不愿意反对他，就像丹尼尔·韦伯斯这样伟大的参议员，也不得不屈服。As Commander General of pro-bank forces, Biden had one powerful advantage over his adversary. For all practical purposes, Congress was in his pocket, or more accurately, product of his generosity was in the pockets of congressmen. Following the Roosevelt formula, Biden has been carefully to reward compliant politicians with success in the business world. Few of them were willing to bite the hand that fed them. 很少有人愿意要喂养他们的手。Few of them were willing to bite the hand that fed them. By the hand that fed them. Even the great Senator Daniel Webster found himself kneeling at Biden's throne. 王权宝座 throne Bidell was not without resources. In keeping with his belief that banking was the ultimate source of power, he had regularly advanced funds to members of Congress when delay on appropriations bills had held up their pay. Daniel Webster was, at various times, a director of the bank and a retainer as its counsel. I believe my retainer has not been renewed or refreshed as usual. If it be wished that my relation to the bank should be continued, it may be well to send me the usual retainers. Numerous other men of distinction had been accommodated, including members of the press. Members of the press.如何利用银行的资源来维系国会议员？其他人认为一分是零，岳飞没有资源，秉持着他认为银行业是权力最终来源的信念。对，当拨款法案的延误导致国会议员薪水被拖欠时，他经常预先向他们提供资金。韦伯斯特在不同时期担任银行的董事，并作为银行的顾问领取薪酬。我相信我的酬金像一样没有续弦或更新。如果希望我与银行的关系能够继续，最好给我寄来通常的酬金。许多其他相关人士也得到照顾，包括新闻界人士。That was not without resources. In keeping with his belief that bank was the ultimate source of power, he had regularly advanced funds to members of Congress when delayed on appropriate bills had held up their pay. Delayed on appropriations bills had held up their pay. Appropriations bills held up their pay. Held up the advanced funds. Daniel Webster was at various times director of bank and on retainer as its counsel. Retainer as its counsel. Counsel. On retainer as its counsel. 作为银行的顾问，也意味着他定期为银行提供法律咨询和并获得报酬。I believe my retainer has not been renewed or refreshed as usual. I believe my retainer has not been renewed or refreshed as usual. If it would be wished that my relation to bank should be continued, it may be well to send me the usual retainers. Numerous other men of distinction have been accommodated, including members of the press. Accommodated 提供便利，得到照顾。 Webster is a particularly interesting study in how even so-called great men can be compromised compromised by an addiction to wealth. He had always been an advocate of some money in Congress, yet as a lawyer on Biden's payroll, he represented the bank's position before the Supreme Court in Maryland. Much of the twisted logic that allowed the Count to enrun the Constitution and destroy some money came from his pen. After Jackson's veto to the bank's charter, Biden requested Webster to deliver speeches specifically for the purpose of having the bank reprint them for mass distribution. In one of those speeches, Webster echoed the old refrain that the bank served as a moderating influence on the nation's other banks and then fiercely proclaimed, Congress can alone coin money. No state, not even Congress can. No state can make anything a tender but gold and silver in the payment of debts, in an act of astounding hypocrisy. This speech was distributed widely by the very institution that was designed specifically, 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 specifically for creating fractional fiat money without gold and silver backing, to function as tender in the payment of debts. Then, as now, most people did not discern between words and actions, and believed that this speech delivered by such a great man was evidence of the bank's worsening. Biden even distributed 300,000 copies of Jackson's veto message, apparently in the belief that many would not read it. Obviously, if the bank thought it was so bad as to distribute it, it must be bad. The power of the bank's money was everywhere. It was as John Rodney, the fiery old Republican from Virginia, he said, every man you meet in this house or out of it, with some rare exceptions, which only serve to prove the rule, is either a stockholder, president, cashier, clerk, or doorkeeper, runner, engraver, paper maker, or mechanics in some other way to the bank. 打仗挺有意思的，争来争去也挺有意思。争来争去就是钱权 appears directly to the voters. 在杰克逊否决案，彼得尔仅就有个司法原理，专门为了让银行承印并大规模分发这些年的，其中一篇演讲中重复了老调重弹，称银行对国家其他银行起到调节的，然而全球形中只有国会才能铸造货币，任何州甚至国会本身都不能使除境之外任何东西成为常规债务的法定货币。在一个令人震惊的戏剧性的这篇演讲搞外而分发的正是专门设计用来创造没有经济支持的 fractional fiat money， 以作为常规债务法定货币的结果，就像现在一样，当时大多数人无法分辨言行之间的差异，相信这篇有如此伟大的人发表的演讲，证明了银行价值，他甚至分了32份，显然是认为许多人不会去读它。显然，如果银行认为它如此糟糕，以至于要分化它，那一定很糟糕。After Jackson's veto to the bank's charter by the request Webster to deliver speeches specific the purpose of having the bank represent them for mass distributions. Mass distribution. In one of those speeches, Webster echoed the old refrain that the bank served as moderate influence on the nation's other banks, and then fiercely proclaimed, Congress can alone call money. No state can make anything a tender, a gold and silver, in payment of debts, in act of a song hypocrisy, as a song, astounding, hypocrisy, hypocrisy. This speech was distributed widely by the very institution that was designed specifically for creating fractional fiat money without gold and silver backing to function as tender in the payment of debts. Then, as now, most people did not discern between words and actions, and believed that the speech delivered by such great men was evidence of the bank's worthlessness. Federal even distributed 300,000 copies of Jackson's veto message, appearing in the belief that many would not read it. Obviously, if the bank thought it was so bad to distribute it, they must be bad. The power of the bank's money everywhere. The power of the bank's money was everywhere. It was, as Jackson wrote in the fiery old Republican from Virginia had said, everyone you met in this house, or out of it, with some rare exception, which only served to provide the rule, only served where the rule is either stockholder. 银行金钱的权利无处不在。The power of banks' money was everywhere. 奥根和约翰兰多夫。你在国会遇到的每个人，除了极少数例外，这些例外只是证明了规则。要么股东总裁出来，要么是人为行使调查权，或者以其他方式为银行服务的机构。The power of the banks everywhere was as general as the theory of republic. Theory. 当红的 old replication. Aside, everyone you meet in the house or otherwise, with some rare exceptions, which only serve to prove the rule, is either a stockholder, president, cashier, clerk, doorkeeper, runner, engraver, papermaker, mechanic, in some other way to a bank, as appears direct to the voters. Okay, I think that's all for today. 直面选民 removes federal delegates. Federal delivers creates monetary chaos. Jackson is censored by the Senate. Biden defies Congress. Some bad mixed in with the good. Oh, there's still a long. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you. See you tomorrow. 斗争异常激烈。拜拜，See you.